The Western Conference is stacked. New names, new faces, wearing new threads, which is making it nearly impossible to predict which team will come out on top. But today, I've got some bold predictions on hand, with the boldest prediction coming a little later in the video. Let's go. Around the start of every season, all 30 NBA general managers are polled on a number of things. But the most intriguing part of their voting is how they think the standings will turn out. And so far for the 2024 NBA season, this was the turnout for the NBA's Western Conference, with the defending champion Denver Nuggets, to the surprise of no one, being at the very top with a total of 35% of the votes, picking them to finish first in the West. And following Denver are other heavyweights like the Phoenix Suns, the LA Lakers, and down in fourth place are the champions from 2 seasons ago, the Golden State Warriors. What are your thoughts on the top 4? Me, personally, that's a solid list, though my order is different, which I'll unveil in just a few moments. But I want to look even further down because, man, are there huge surprises or what? Because the NBA's most improved team from a year ago is all the way down at the 8th spot. The Sacramento Kings are bringing back their team intact from a season ago and still aren't getting much love from the GMs. They made the postseason last year, their stars are coming back better and stronger. Now they are even battle-tested after going 7 games against the then-defending champs. Seeing them that far down undoubtedly has the Kings fans feeling all types of ways. But let's continue dissecting, because the Dallas Mavericks are down there at the 9th seed, which is really interesting because in a separate voting that asked GMs to pick which team would be the most improved, guess what? The Mavs got the 3rd most votes in that category. Interesting. And after the Mavs, we have the NBA's brewing Cinderella story in the OKC Thunder. Still young and upcoming, I know, but still, seeing them at barely a play-in spot was fairly surprising to me. But for the sake of the video, I wanted to keep our focus on the top 4 teams in the West, because even though I really like the teams beneath them, I just feel that the top 4 are surefire in terms of pedigree, experience, and overall talent. So, the Denver Nuggets. We get it, they are the champs. They confirmed that once again with a statement win over the Lakers on opening night. And well, Nikola Jokic is just entering the thick of his prime. So it's pretty much all sunshine and green grass for a team that has the best player in the NBA, an electric and quickly improving Jamal Murray, and probably the best supporting cast in all of the NBA. This is why the Nuggets are my pick to make it to the Western Conference Finals. Moving on to the Phoenix Suns, the new-look offensive powerhouse. Those guys look built and prime-time ready with their explosive scoring power and having 3 guys who can go out and drop 50 points on any given night. And for that reason, if you want to pick them as the team that'll win it all this season, that isn't a bad argument by any stretch, until we pick apart the other side of the ball and consider the fact that they have 3 injury-prone superstars. Yes, that's really it. That's the 2 things that can realistically stop the Suns. But you have to look at it objectively. When was the last time KD played a full, healthy season? How about Bradley Beal? How about D-Brook? And weren't the critics going on and on about how the Suns have the potential to be one of the worst defensive teams of all time? In a perfect world, I'd choose Phoenix. But given what we've seen in the past few seasons and the trend with their superstars, that's a risky pick, which is why I have them losing a tough series in the 2nd round. And that leaves us with the 2 teams that fought it out for the rights to play the Denver Nuggets in the Western Conference Finals last season. And the team that came out on top was, of course, the LA Lakers. And for good reason, I guess it makes sense why the GM slightly favored LeBron's Lakers over Steph's Warriors based on the last postseason. But are the GMs really seeing something about the Warriors that the rest of us aren't? Or is this just a reflection of what they've been doing in the past? Because believe it or not, before the start of the same season, the Warriors would go on to win the championship. In the preseason GM poll, the Warriors were picked to finish only 5th in the Western Conference and a less than 1% shot at winning the NBA title. But that was largely because the Warriors were coming off a shaky season and the team had a different look to it from top to bottom. And crazy enough, I see a lot of similarities to this season's Warriors and how people are viewing them. New look, new positions, a different vibe and feel, and they're coming off a relatively shaky regular season when they became a historically bad road team. But in other voting categories, the GMs are actually preaching to my choir by voting Stephen Curry as the #1 most hard to game plan against player in the NBA. And Steph also received by far the most votes for the NBA's best point guard. Well, if that's the case, even for an almost 36-year-old Steph Curry, and the rest of the Warriors are pretty much intact, then that tells us that the only thing that is stopping the Warriors from being a bigger favorite is questions about the chemistry between the Warriors and the newly added Chris Paul. Actually, this one poll confirms that to be the case because in the category of which team had the best offseason overall, the Warriors were nowhere to be found. I mean, the Houston Rockets added Fred VanVleet and even Dylan Brooks, who was supposed to be in Shanghai, but even the Rockets got more votes in this category. The GMs are really doubting the Dubs with CP3, huh? See, I've gone over CP3's role on the Warriors and how he'll fit in other videos, which I encourage you to watch after this one. But in a nutshell, here's what I think the GMs and skeptics out there are missing about the Warriors. CP3 is exactly the player the Warriors need to unlock their explosive potential. Why? Because he adds that element of savvy and experience as a primary ball handler that will allow Steph and Klay to work their magic off the ball. If Steph Curry is already one of the 5 best players in basketball, and by far the best point guard in the world, what do you think a less burdened Steph Curry is capable of when he can worry much less about facilitating and pouring his energy into scoring? That's a dream recipe for the Dubs. And yes, this is my reasoning for choosing the Warriors as the team that'll face the Denver Nuggets in the 2024 Western Conference Finals. And I realize I kind of skipped over the Lakers, but I think many of you will agree with me on this point. The Lakers can forget winning the West. They'll win it all if they get an MVP caliber Anthony Davis all season long. But there's no denying that's a big if, because Anthony Davis, yeah, I get all the jokes, street clothes, Data Davis, AD, aka always disappointing, I know. But there's truth to that because the man doesn't consistently perform to his peak caliber, which in the end will be the reason why the Lakers won't make it out of the West. Never mind the fact that LeBron's nearly 39 years old. And it's just way too much to ask of LeBron in his 21st season to rise above all and carry LA to the promised land. So, Steph's Warriors versus Jokic's Nuggets. Who am I taking? You know what? I want you to first tell me in the comments if you agree with this matchup. And tell me who you think would win between these two teams for the right to go to the NBA Finals. I want to hear from you because the storylines of that matchup would be epic. Steph possibly going to his 7th NBA Finals and perhaps taking claim as the greatest PG ever. The Warriors arguably solidifying themselves as the greatest dynasty ever. Then you have the Nuggets, with folks potentially calling them the NBA's new dynasty. Jokic's quest to become a, I don't know, top 10 player ever. So much to look out for, but again, I'll take a back seat on this one and let you guys spill your own thoughts. And before I wrap things up, let's look briefly at some other potential storylines out of the West this season, because we have the Pelicans, who I haven't even mentioned yet, as a surprise candidate depending on the season-long status of Zion Williamson. Heck, the Pels could be in the thick of the race just like they were a season ago before Zion went down. And the other, I can't count out the Minnesota Timberwolves either, with the quickly emerging Anthony Edwards, of course. Karl Anthony Towns is still there, and an overall quality squad. In fact, Anthony Edwards beat out Cade Cunningham to earn the GM's votes for the player who is most likely to have a breakout season. That, among so much more that is brewing out west in 2024, as this is literally a toss-up between so many teams, so many dynamic duos, so many interesting stories in the wild, wild west.